Welcome to our channel where we talk about spirituality and esoteric stuff, where we dive deep into manifestation, the new paradigm, and where we inspire you how to play, move, train in order to prepare your body for higher states of consciousness. Welcome back. My name is Nat, and in this video, I'm going to share with you the exact meditation that I do, the theory behind it, and how I trained in this technique. The Vipassana meditation can be traced all the way back to the teachings of the Buddha. It is completely non-sectarian, and any person of any religion or any background can practice it. Think of this technique like a surgical procedure for the mind. It is used to penetrate the deeper level of the mind, the unconscious mind. It is used to untie the knots and the blockages that have accumulated in there. It is like a mental purification. It is seeing things as they are. The Vipassana meditation is taught over a 10-day course. There are centers all over the world. You can register for them online. And what you actually do when you attend a course is, first of all, you take a vow of silence. You cannot speak to the other meditators or even make eye contact for them for 10 whole days. You have 2 meals a day. You get a breakfast and a lunch. And then in the afternoon, you get some tea with fruit, or you get lemon water if you're a second-time student. Meals are kept light because you want your body to be less dense and less bogged down in the physical world. When sustenance is kept light, the lighter your ethereal body becomes, the easier it is for you to dissolve all the blockages collected in your body. So men and women are completely separate. This complete noble silence helps you to go with the flow of the meditation and experience everything on another level. Now, the first 3 days of the course have you meditating for 11 hours a day. And the first thing you're taught is the Anapana meditation, which is basically awareness of your respiration. It is not like pranayama where you actually regulate your breathing. This is not the purpose of Anapana, which is simple awareness of the breath. You are taught to observe the breath, how it moves in, how it moves out, and any sensation that comes up in the small triangular area right here, below the nostrils and above the upper lip. What this achieves is to sharpen the mind. It's actually incredibly interesting to watch your progress and how your mind is extremely reactive during the first 2 days. It's very, very undisciplined. You take a few breaths and then off you go galloping into what so-and-so from your office said to you, how your parents never listened to you, how that dude from high school thought that he was the shit. Then gradually, as the days go by, you start noticing how distractions start becoming shorter, how you're able to keep all your attention and awareness on your breath more and more. You also start noticing other things. You start moving from the more gross, apparent sensations, like the touch of the breath on the nostrils, for example, to a more subtle, absolute truth. You start finding yourself dissecting the gross sensations. You start feeling heat, tingling, prickling, expansion, contraction, throbbing, pulsing. You start differentiating all these sensations that arise. And ultimately, you start perceiving the very subtle vibration, which is the underlying reality, really, of all matter and all sensation. Now, this is where I was at about day 3. So physically, I had incredible pain from sitting cross-legged all day in my hips, in my knees, and my back. So you are told to not feel aversion to the pain and simply observe it with equanimity. Needless to say that this is much easier said than done. Mentally, the mind is doing its own thing. I could feel things bubbling up, and the conscious brain was trying to suppress it by bringing up shit like, is this right for me? Is this working? Why am I even doing this? And so on. They tell you that the pains are actually mental blocks and stuff from the subconscious coming up to the surface only to pass away. So on the third day, what happened is that I had a breakthrough. I don't even know how it happened or why, right? But I dived deep into a particular pain in my hip. I let go, I surrendered to it, and then everything in the outside world was muted. It was like somebody pressed the mute button and I couldn't hear anything that was happening around me. All sound was gone, and I went to a place of nothingness. I cannot describe it in any other way. I was still conscious of my identity, who I am, but I also felt that I was not that. No, I didn't feel it, I knew it. I could observe myself from another viewpoint. I remember actually saying, when I went to that place, I said, whoa, where am I? Right? So when I came out of this state, which lasted about 30 seconds, 40 seconds, it didn't last long, but when I snapped out of it, what happened is that the pain that I had everywhere in my body was completely gone. Completely. What I felt in place of the pain were cooling sensations in my knees, in my hips, and in my back, in the specific areas where the pain used to be. It was actually quite amazing, and this feeling lasted throughout the whole day. So then on the next day, you're taught the actual Vipassana. Now, what is the Vipassana? It's actually a body scan that starts from the top of the head and ends at the very tips of your toes. You are given clear instructions on how to go about this, and the instructions progress as your journey progresses. You basically observe, and as you observe, you become more and more able to detect subtler and subtler sensations. You're able to sweep energy up and down your body, and you become very, very aware of what's taking place everywhere. So when the actual Vipassana started, the pain came back for me. So at first I was very disappointed, and I was desperately looking to go back to that altered state of consciousness that I had achieved. But it was not happening. I actually got really close to it a couple times, but it was not as intense. So then the teacher advised me to surrender to the process and not go looking for something. Not to do the meditation with a goal in mind. So what happens after that is that you keep moving through the pain and the discomfort because you start understanding how everything comes together, right? By tying the mental and the physical. Through the physical, the mental structure is liberated. How this works? Through the notion of sankharas. So you can think of sankharas as psychosomatic patterns that are basically ingrained within the individual. They are your trauma. There are 3 types of sankharas, psychosomatic patterns. The first one is like, think of it as drawing a line on the water, right? It immediately disappears. The second is like drawing a line in the sand. It will stay there for a few minutes maybe, but when the waves come in, they will eventually make it disappear. The third one is like carving the line into a rock. It might eventually fade out a little bit, but will it ever fully disappear? What do you think? So on the other hand, what was happening to me outside the meditation practice was also very interesting. I was having vivid dreams every night, and I was starting to remember things from my childhood, both good and not that good, memories upon memories upon memories that I didn't even think I had, things that I hadn't thought about in years. I was always the type of person whose childhood and teenage years were very hazy at best. Everything was like a blur. There were parts of my childhood where I literally had no memories about whatsoever. It wasn't anything really traumatic, but it was minor things and events that have built the patterns which have dictated my responses and the way I saw things for my entire life. At some point, things were being flushed out so intensely and with such speed that I was overwhelmed. Break times after the meditation sittings were actually the hardest for me. That's when emotions keep coming up, things were brought up for resolution, and all of my patterns, all my subconscious programming, all the things of the ego that I had picked up or that had scarred me were being made obvious and being held like a mirror right in front of me. It was literally seeing things as they are. Illusions were tumbling down like a castle under attack. So on day 5, the sittings of Aditana started. Aditana are the sittings of strong determination. That's what they're called. So for 1 hour, you have to sit completely and totally still without budging an inch. You cannot move your hand. You cannot move your foot. You cannot move your leg. You can move nothing. You cannot open your eyes even. You have to be in complete and total stillness for 1 hour. You're not allowed to change your position in any way whatsoever. Now I gotta tell you, the first time we did this, it was almost traumatic. It was one of the hardest things that I ever had to do. So these sittings are done twice a day, and they're the most intense emotionally, physically, and mentally. But they are really powerful. For me, these sittings were the periods where the most progress and breakthroughs were made. So imagine this, right? You're sitting there, you're not allowed to move, you're not allowed to scratch an itch, you're not allowed to open your eyes, you're not allowed to do anything basically. And you're in pain, right? You're in pain. So somehow you make it through the first half hour. After the first half hour, there's extreme discomfort, extreme. You can hear people breathing loud, you can hear people moaning, you can hear a lot of things happening around the room during those sittings. So with great difficulty, you make it to 45 minutes. So the last 15 minutes are like an extreme form of torture. The amount of effort required to just go through those last minutes is literally heroic. So somehow you make it to day 7. What happened on day 7 is basically my hips opened up. There was no more pain, because imagine sitting for 7 days for 11 hours a day. Something has to happen and you get used to it, right? The only pain left was the pain in my back, which for those of you who have seen the movie Alien, it felt like an alien was crawling around my back trying to break free. But then you start realizing things. I started realizing how I store emotions, where I store them. I realized that I store them in my abdominal area. I felt the emotions in my ribs, and I felt how they throbbed in there. Everything was coming up that needed my attention, and I knew where it was coming from because that's where I had been storing it all my life. It was only during the last couple of days that I started grasping what it was all about and where real progress was made. That's when you start experiencing the notion that you have been taught through the daily discourses. You start understanding in an experiential level that every sensation only arises to pass away. There is this constant arising and passing away, arising and passing away. You start realizing that however unpleasant a sensation may be, if you maintain perfect equanimity, sooner or later, it's going to pass away. However pleasant a sensation may be, if you remain completely equanimous, sooner or later, it's going to pass away. So the characteristic of impermanence is what you start realizing on an experiential level. You're not realizing it because the Buddha has said so. You're not realizing it because your teacher said so. You're starting to realize it because you feel it, you know it. you have experienced it. And that's the beauty of Vipassana. And then, of course, what you start doing is you start to apply it to your everyday life. What I realized was that reacting with aversion or craving to different situations in my life was what I've been doing all along. Constant aversion, constant craving, never accepting reality as it is, but always trying to change it, manipulate it in some way or other, or control it. I don't like this person because he's this. Fuck that person, fuck this person, fuck the situation, fuck that situation. I don't like the way the stranger looked at me. I don't like this, I don't like that. Aversion, 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 a constant battle with reality. The same with craving. Craving the sensation this food gives you, or craving the sensation from when you were eating that ice cream under that wonderful sky in London or Paris or wherever. Same with craving. Craving the sensation this food gives you, or craving the sensation from when you were eating that amazing ice cream under that amazing sky on that amazing day. And never surrendering or saying yes to the present moment. Looking at how I always reacted, nothing was met with equanimity previously. Everything held a positive or a negative charge. And all along, those sensations were registering everywhere on my body, and by extension on my subconscious mind. And all along, my subconscious mind was generating deep sankharas, which were being reinforced each time they came up. The most important lesson you actually experience through Vipassana is that everything is anicca. Anicca is a wonderful term that means in Buddhism impermanent, transient. So I learned how to dissolve gross sensations. I didn't call it pain anymore. It wasn't actually registering as that. It was just a solidified sensation. Pain is actually a story you tell yourself, if you think about it. Like all other mental stories. It doesn't matter what the pain is from. For example, it was from long hours of sitting. Imagine the implications for people with chronic pain. The physical and the mental structure merge, and there is no separation anymore. Everything is anicca. We heard that word 500 times a day, and it became a favorite with everyone because it's the law of nature, the law of the universe. Everything is impermanent. Day 10 is the day of metta. It's a transitional day. Metta means benevolence, loving kindness, friendliness, amity, goodwill, and it also means active interest in others. Noble silence is lifted and everybody can talk again. You start realizing when you're sharing with others that nobody is the same person they came in. I was not the same person. 10 days brought up more than would have been brought up in a lifetime if I hadn't taken this course. And this is only level 1, right? Of 1,000, possibly more on the path as I see it. There's so much work that needs to be done. But I know now, if you do not put in the work, you cannot get to the deeper layers of the mind. You cannot progress on the path. And what's happening is that you keep recycling the misery, making the sankharas deeper and deeper as you move blindly through life. I asked the teacher at the end whether there was an ultimate goal to this, a state of consciousness that one is supposed to get to when one follows the path. After all, I knew that the path led Buddha to enlightenment. What she said was, believe me, both you and I are too far from that state, maybe even several lives away. Unless, you never know, everything is, after all, anicca. As always, I'm sending out my love to you. May all of you be happy, all of you be peaceful. May all of you